Okay, so today we are visiting my new friend here, Paul. Is it Noiles?
Noiles.
Paul
Noiles.
Noiles.
Good job.
Yeah, and Paul, thank you so much for taking part in this podcast. Paul he's an awakening and recovery coach, and he has also written a book called Mistaken Identity. You can get that on Amazon.com, and we're going to talk a little bit about what that means, mistaken identity, and a little bit about what Paul does to help people heal through recovery, through trauma. So Paul, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started down this path.
All righty. Well, thanks for having me. Um, really appreciate the offer, and I always love to serve. So here we are. Well, here's a great way to start. At 6 years old, I would say to you, because of what I know now, that I was already a person with an addiction. I just didn't know it yet till many years later. You see, addiction is never about the substance. Alcohol doesn't make an alcoholic. Cocaine doesn't make a cocaine addict. Food doesn't make a food addict. Gambling doesn't make a we have to be susceptible to addiction in the first place. So if you really look at it, my addiction really started in the fundamental years. The most famous quote in my book that people always say, oh my God, I just love that quote, is this, is we spend our adulthood, our childhood trying to grow up as fast as possible. And then we spend our adulthood trying to undo our childhood. Here's the thing though, most don't realize that's what's going on. So at 6 years old, there's a little guy who's scared, fearful from my childhood experience. And so the child will always have to throw out their authenticity. It's called attachment theory. You always have to attach to your caretakers, and you'll always throw out your authenticity because attachment is the most important. In other words, everything that's happening in your experience, you will blame yourself for if there's no one there to hold the space for you. Right. So the voice of addiction really is, I'm not good enough, I'm less than, what's wrong with me, and all those things. And those all begin early in our traumatic experiences. Yes, some people have traumatic experiences that are later in life that cause addictions and stuff, but the mass majority, it's all coming from early childhood traumas. For
Mhm.
instance, even in absent parents, and by the way, we're not blaming parents here because it's a tough time out there. Two parents have to be working all these hours. The kids are never get them around. What do you think a child would believe about himself if his parents aren't there? What do you think?
There's a lot of thoughts. I mean, you could
Yeah,
think that
give me a few.
maybe they don't care about me.
Right,
That's one of the probably
right. Maybe they
first.
don't care about me.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something wrong with me. That's not why they're here. Now, you see, if nobody was there to talk to them and say, Mommy and Daddy have to go to work because we're just trying to get by and we love you to death and we don't want you to feel that way. What are you feeling? Oh, I feel sadness. Okay, can I hold that space with you? You
Mhm.
see, now we don't turn it into trauma, but most of the time when you ask a child that question, they'll say, I talk to nobody. And then that begins a trauma, what I call mistaken identity. So now we come to the book title, which is Mistaken Identity.
Yes.
So every human being on the planet has mistaken identity. It's part of being a human being, right? So what is identity? I am my mind. I am my thoughts. I am my feelings. I am my fears, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So we have this mistaken identity, and people with addictions have it at a bigger place, which is the toxic shame, right? The toxic
Mhm.
shame. I'm not good enough. I'm less than, all these things.
Yeah.
And that is the mistaken identity. And that mistaken identity that begins early, it's like a snowball and it'll grow down a hill if it's not looked at and
Mhm.
not taken. It grows, it grows. And so there I am at 6 years old. I already believe that I'm unlovable, not enough, unworthy. And then it grows bigger and bigger. And then all of a sudden, I find my substance in my 20 that really connects with me and it works in the beginning. See, the important that you recognize that all addictions, the first thing you need to look at is why did you do it? Because it works in the beginning. The first time I did my substance of choice, I felt connected, whole, at peace for the very first time. Why
Mhm.
wouldn't I want more than that? But the question is, why did I not feel connected? Why did I not feel safe? The
Yes.
opposite of that has all your answers to your healing.
Yeah.
right? So that snowball is growing, and then I add the addiction, and now watch this mistaken identity now really take off. So you talk, your channel is about happy, the search for happy.
Yeah.
And the search, you see, you can never know who you are. The only way you can know who you are is by knowing who you're not. So you have an onion and you got to peel it. And when the onion disappears, you're with your true self, your authentic self, the real you, your true essence. And so we peel this mistaken identity. And the mistaken identity, how many people that believe that they are their thoughts, that they are their feelings, that they are the mind. If we really look at it, 95% of all suffering is completely a hijack of the mind.
Yeah.
It's the prison of the mind, and it's the belief in thoughts, and these thoughts that are producing the feelings and body sensations.
Sure.
And we
Yeah.
believe that is who we are.
Yeah.
The journey is to know it here. If you just know that you're not your thoughts and feelings, not the mind here, it'll never serve you. You have to experience it. And how do you get to that? That's the work. So the real solution to addiction, to depression, to really anything is an awakening of consciousness. We're waking up to the truth, peeling this mistaken identity. I mean, the victim mode, the world is just full of victim mode and everybody blaming everybody right now. You know you're in the victim mode if you're in blame. Everyone, the Republicans blaming this, the Democrats blame that, in Canada, the conservatives blaming, and the liberals, everybody's in the blame game, and everything's blame. That's all victim mode. It will never serve anything.
Right.
Never serve anything. That layer of blaming, and the victim mode, that has to be the first one that we have to really look at and get rid of. Because if you're in blame mode, you're not taking full 100% responsibility for your life.
Right.
So when most people meet me and they hear my story, they can't believe it. They think it's a lie. Because you see, I was a very successful entrepreneur at a very young age. I left university, and that's because I had a mantra running: love me, love me, love me, because I don't love myself. So that ego mind created a lot of success.
Yeah.
But I hated who I was, and I hid that from everybody. It's part of the mistaken identity. They call that imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome is huge in the world. Everybody's projecting this, but they believe themselves completely opposite.
Right. Yeah.
And then I found my substance of choice, and by 34, 36, I was homeless in Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver. I tried to kill myself twice. I was overdosed. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how many times that I survived overdoses. Been to treatment 8 times, 50 detoxes. I mean, the story is horrendous. I was beaten in Vancouver by a pipe over the head. I don't know how I survived it. 2 guys robbed me. In Ottawa, I was standing there and I had a backpack and it was in the hood, and something was making me go, oh my God. And this guy takes a brick, hits me in my face, cracks my whole face, sunk in, cracked my bone. I get away from it. I mean, I could go on and on, the horror stories.
Yeah.
I'm a true miracle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That I've survived all of that, and I can smile at all of that, and that I've had an awakening of consciousness, and all that stuff is I've healed that stuff. But the real healing is these traumatic experiences that we have early on, and how those affect us. And part of the journey, and if anyone doesn't know who Dr. Gabor Mate is, most people do. He's a very famous, he speaks all over the world. He's probably one of the best trauma teachers in the world, one of the most awake beings on the planet, Dr. Gabor Mate. I spent a whole year with him learning his technique called compassionate inquiry, in which I can take a person back to what's going on in the present moment, and show them that they got this pain, because pain is never about the present moment, it's about the past. And I could bring you back, like if I was doing with you, I'd be able to bring you back to a real place where the real first core trauma began. And then you'll have compassion for yourself. You see, when you do that, it breaks. What would you say? I'm pretty sure you might even agree with me, but I would say that probably one of the worst damaging things to us as individuals on the planet Earth is how much we all beat ourselves up. Would you
Yeah,
agree with me about
I
that?
totally agree.
Right. If we can't be our best friend, we're pretty well screwed, are we not?
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
So that's why this it's called compassion and inquiry, the approach. You see, only when compassion is present will people be able to experience their truth. Only when compassion is present. So, if anything from this talk today, I hope that people walk away that to understand that they need to have great compassion for themselves in everything they do, the good, the bad, the ugly. Hold the compassion. If you can't be your best friend, you're going to be screwed. Which brings me up to the Dalai Lama. You're talking about happiness.
Sure. Yeah.
So this would probably be 17, oh no, maybe 15 years ago on my journey of awakening and recovery. And for some reason, the Dalai Lama, everywhere I turned on the TV is a Dalai Lama talking about compassion. I read a book on the Dalai Lama, compassion. Another book by the Dalai Lama, compassion. I'm at a hospital waiting to go see a doctor. There's a book, there's a magazine. I open up and there's the Dalai Lama, compassion at the top. All he ever talked about was compassion. And I had this epiphany. What's going on with it? That's all he ever talks about. There must be something to this. And I processed it. And I thought about it because I thought it was, I'm a guy. Oh, it's this Pollyanna, compassion, Paul. And I realized at a very deep here level that without compassion, you'll never make it. And then I thought it was going to be easy to try to practice compassion. Now, let me tell you, you want to find a difficult thing, try to practice compassion daily for yourself. Let me just tell you, at the very beginning, it is difficult. It is difficult to have compassion for yourself. So, how's that for the opening?
It's a great opening. That is a great opening. Um, yeah, I would say that's a thing that I've had many deep conversations about. People the self chatter in our minds that are it's constantly berating us and putting you down, and learning how to just separate yourself from those ideas and thoughts is the trick, right? People do meditation
Right.
as
Yeah.
a practice to separate from those ideas and thoughts and stay really connected and in the now. But
Well,
it's easier said than done,
right.
especially like you say, if you've done it for a very long time.
Mhm.
um
You mentioned something that is spot on, and it's you mentioned the word meditation. Okay, so this word meditation, when you even mention the word, you see a lot of people like they just want to run. People don't like to meditate. And I can tell you that if I never learned to meditate, I definitely would have taken a gun and blown my brains out. Meditation is how you experience that you're not your thoughts and your feelings of the mind.
mhm,
It shows you it. In the meditation experience, you're able to separate and see that these thoughts that are happening in your mind is not you, that you are the consciousness that has thoughts, that you are the consciousness that has feelings, that you are the consciousness that has body sensations, that there's actually no permanence in thoughts, feelings, and body sensations.
mhm,
The permanence comes from the belief, and you
mhm.
keep getting it back. Do you know that the average human being has 50 to 70,000 thoughts every day?
It's not surprising.
That's what science has shown us.
Yeah.
And it's those returning negative, I don't like the word negative thoughts because he put you into that negative, positive, low vibration thoughts that we
Mhm,
continually have. Those is what's creating the destruction, and that is the mistaken identity.
mhm,
And where does it live? It lives in the subconscious mind.
mhm,
Now, why is that important to understand? The subconscious mind, according to science, is a million times stronger than the conscious mind. They've actually recorded this. They know that the subconscious mind operates at 40 million bits per second. 40 million bits per second. There's not even a computer that can do that.
Mm-hmm.
So the subconscious mind is operating the blood flow, your heart beating, us breathing right now. We're not doing it. Subconscious mind is doing it, but it also has all those things. I'm not good enough. I'm less than. They all live in the subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Now, consciousness operates at 40 bits per second. 40.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So there's the million stronger is the subconscious
Yeah.
mind. So that's what we have to undo, and that takes real work.
What kind of work is involved in getting to that place, to getting to that subconscious level where you can start to identify those core beliefs that aren't serving you, and what can you do to change them? That it does take work. I know that there's a cognitive based approaches, where they
Mhm,
rewrite, they
mhm.
identify the core beliefs and then they rewrite them. What are you doing to help people get back to that subconscious place, identify these
Yeah,
these
yeah,
beliefs that aren't serving them
right.
well?
Well, compassionate inquiry is one of the ones that I use. It's
Okay.
probably the one that's the top. I get to the root of where it actually began.
Okay.
So when I get to the root, that can change everything, right? Like what, like I'm not good enough. Where did that stuff begin?
Mm-hmm.
And if we can get to the root to bring you there, and you can see what actually happened to you. And so let's understand something, what trauma does. So trauma is a disconnection. You live in the mind, and all the body has suppressed all this stuff. You ever
Yeah.
heard the statement, our issues live in our tissues?
Yes.
It's truth. That's what trauma does to us. And so to heal the trauma, we have to take the person there. And there could be even trauma that's pre-verbal too. But it's important is we get to the emotion. What's the emotion in the body? And they're experiencing it now, and we get it out.
Mm-hmm.
They get it out. And then they see the story that was created that has kept it going. Powerful stuff. Compassion inquiry. Meditation gets to the subconscious mind. Fast way. There's also lots of other ways. I mean, there's all kinds of like EFT tapping, EMDR. I don't know if you know what EMDR is,
I
right?
do.
Um, um, I would say also what has been paramount in mine is affirmations. Affirmations, though, you got to do them really daily,
Mm-hmm.
constantly doing them, you know. And then there's something called self-inquiry. Do you know who Krishnamurti is?
No.
Judas Krishnamurti. So Judas Krishnamurti, it was about probably 18 years ago, I started studying Judas Krishnamurti. What an incredible man. He was a young boy found on a beach in India by Brits. They thought he thought he was the incarnation of Christ. He was that brilliant. He was an orphan boy. They took him back to Britain, put him in, they built $1 million dowry around him. That's how awake this kid was. And put him into private universities and all that stuff. And I forget what age it was. I think it was like 17. He left and he said, "You guys are nuts." And he went around the world helping people. And then in the laters of his life, he let no one take film of him. In the laters of his life, and you can see it on the BBC in black and white film, he finally allowed people to listen to his message in the droves. They came out in fields to listen to Krishnamurti.
Hmm.
Take a look at him, Judas Krishnamurti.
How do you spell his? How do you spell that?
Oh, Krishnamurti, Krish K-R-I-S, Krishnamurti, Krishnamurti, Judas Krishnamurti, J. Krishnamurti.
Okay.
And he made a choice not to study any sacred script. He was an Indian boy, not to study the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, not the Bible, nothing. He all did self-inquiry. So self-inquiry is this: say I have an issue, or really struggling with something. So what I do is I will meditate for a few minutes. to calm down. And then I ask a bold question to the universe, to it, love, God, creator, whatever you choose to call that power. I call the power, this one power of love, this grid that runs through all life. And I ask a question, a bold question about my problem. Now I will sit there and wait for the answer. Now, what happens is the mind will start to speak to you. Higher self, higher consciousness, the ego mind, whatever you want to call it. And you're going to get some answers. But you'll know very quickly, like an answer will come like, and I'll go, no, that's the ego mind. Back to listening. No, definitely that's not it either. That's the ego mind. Then something radical will happen. And it's not going to happen every time. You got to practice it. Something radical happens. Your higher self, you hear the voice. It's like just like we hear as we're walking, right? We have a higher consciousness speaks to us. And if you don't, then I don't want to talk to you. There's something wrong with you. We all have that voice. And it just goes and it will, it's like you're completely listening to the answer. And usually I'll be bawling like a baby because it's so deep. It hits you so profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
So profoundly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that, my friend, is another way to blow all the doors of our subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is self-inquiry. And I do that religiously for 17 years. I've been practicing meditation daily for 17 years. If I miss my daily practice, you see, nothing changes if nothing changes. You've probably heard the statement, if you're not willing to change your daily routine, forget it.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And so my daily practice is prayer. Pardon me, is meditation, prayer, and gratitude. My prayer is quite different, though. It's called prayer treatment. And I'll give you a great example of prayer treatment. So my father never spoke to me for like 17 years because he was ashamed of his son who was suffering an addiction. He was buying into the stigma and everything. And whenever I called home, if he answered the phone for 17 years, he would say, here's your mom. That's it for 17 years. Didn't want me to come home, nothing. So my mentor of 26 years, she said, Paul, I want you to start praying for your father, and I want you to do what's called prayer treatment. Here's how you pray for your father. I want you to see him clearly as a God essence, as whole, complete, healed, a beautiful soul. That's all I want you to do. Boys, was that difficult at the beginning because I had a lot of anger towards my father, a lot of shit that I carried, and I blamed him for a lot of stuff. And so every morning I would see my father as that. And it took a lot of work. And eventually I started to believe it myself. And then it was like after it was about 4.5 years of doing it. My dad's never called me for Christmas, ever. I go answer the phone. It's Dad wishing me a happy Christmas. I was blown away. And so I did some inquiry on it. And here's what the higher self, God essence, said to me. Your heart changed. That's why he called you. Like I get caught up just hearing that now. Like that's heavy.
Yeah.
See,
I fully
we have to be the change we want to see in the world.
Yeah, I fully understand. I really understand that, and I've done similar meditations to forgive. And
Mm.
and it's true. Once the grudge is released,
Yeah.
it's almost it can be felt by
Yes.
others, and people avoid you, or people that they know that you're angry at them. They can feel it.
They sure
They
can.
they, they can sense it. They can detect it, and they don't want to deal with you because
Yeah,
of it.
that's right. That's right. Forgiveness is for us.
Yeah, that's
Forgiveness is
right.
so that I could move on.
Exactly. Yeah.
Remember I told you that in my book, the first layer that we have to peel away is the victim mode.
Yeah.
And for good 15 years, I was in the victim mode with my father, that he's the blame. And I came out of a meditation this one day, and I don't know why on that day. By the way, I was working at a treatment center, teaching meditation and everything. And I don't know why, what happened on that day. but it just, and you probably experienced yourself, because I remember you were talking earlier about at 25 you had in a spiritual
Yeah.
thing. And we all have little ones like that, or bigger ones, and different ones at different times. And I come out of that meditation, and I swear to God, it hit me like a ton of rocks. And here's what it hit me. Paul, nobody is coming to save you. Not your father is not coming to save you on a white shiny horse, because that's what I've been waiting for. Your dad is not coming to save you. Your mom is not coming to save you. Your friends are not coming to save you. Your sponsor is not coming to save you, because it's no one's job to save you, Paul. It's yours. I got to tell you, when that voice hit me, I cried like never before in my entire life.
That's powerful.
It was a crying from the depths of my soul out.
Yeah.
Now, here's the fascinating part. I'm at work after I'm at work. I just got done this meditation with a whole group of people in recovery. They left when this happened. And at the end of that bawling and crying, I felt free for the very first time in my life. And I knew that everything was going to be okay from that period on. Why? Because I took 100% responsibility for my life from that point. And that happens to each individual at different times.
Yeah.
But that has to hit everybody, that nobody is coming. You see, everyone's looking for a savior. Your savior is yourself. Yes, you have a God of your understanding. You get in touch with that and all that stuff. But in the end, it all happens through you. It all happens through you. And you have to make that decision. And what the decision did I make? That I was worth it. And what was my early childhood trauma? I'm unworthy. Wow. It was pivotal.
It is powerful. Yeah, that's truly I mean, some of the things that you're just sharing and saying, they're so relatable,
Yeah.
and they are so powerful. It's just it's yeah, it actually brings a little tear to my eye too. It's just like, and I always say that to people. I'm like going, you can always think that somebody's coming to rescue you. You hope that that's going to happen, but it's never going to happen.
Right.
The only
Right.
person who can save you is
Right.
you. The
And
only person.
how many people are waiting for some special relationship to complete them?
Oh, I know. Yeah,
Right. Right. I mean, it's
yeah,
epic out there.
it is.
That whole vibe. And because you see, it's two whole people coming together. It's not a half a person and a half a person. It's two whole people coming together in a relationship.
Yeah.
And this spiritual awakening, right? It's a painful process. And for those people that are there, oh, I'm in spiritual awakening, and they're all joy, they're not in a spiritual awakening. Okay. It's a painful process. What we're doing is we're unraveling our mistaken identity. A psychologist would call that the false self.
Yes.
Right? Which,
Yep.
by the way, this false self and mistaken identity, it was created so that I could survive my childhood. It's survival. So in actuality, that voice that was created when I was early, because of all the fear and abuse that I had to go through, it was how I survived. So in actuality, I was a brilliant child, just like everybody else that goes through their trauma and survive. They're brilliant. They're magnificent. That's how they survived it. And then the only unfortunate is that goes with us. And then we have to learn that that will not serve us anymore. And we have to figure out how we're going to deal with that. And the healing happens by getting in the body and getting it out of the body.
What kind of advice would you give parents that have kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old?
I'll tell you what. Oh, 5 or 6. I was going to tell you that in Dr. Gabor Mate and Porges and all the other great trauma people, you can Google even Dr. Gabor Mate if you get the first 3 years right. So if a parent gets attachment with the first 3 years right, they're pretty well set. It's the first 3 years is the vital time with your children to get attached. attached.
Mm-hmm.
Here's why. This will probably blow your mind. So this is science again, coming together with spirituality. Let me ask you a question. When a horse is born, a giraffe is born, hippopotamus, how much brain development do they have at birth?
I have no idea.
100%. That's why you see them get up and walking right away. It's survival. They need that. They'll get
Okay.
eaten. Okay. Now let me ask you something. We're the big brained animal, right? When we're born, how much brain development do we have at birth?
Well, we're not walking, so it can't be 100%.
Right. This will blow your mind. 25% about. That's it. Okay. From birth to 3 to 4, our brain development goes from 25 approximately to 90%. Are you kidding me? From 3 to 4 to 22, 22, 23 is the final 10%, which is mostly prefrontal cortex. That's the wise part of the brain. Okay. Now, if there is any stress, this is why environment is the big determiner, not genetics. Genetics does have a play, but really everything's about environment. If there's any stress, even when the baby's in the belly to 3 to 4, it stops the important wiring in the brain for many things, but specifically for emotional connection and bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a person who has trauma pre-verbal before 3 can feel confused, like, why do I have all these feelings? What's this all about? The body holds all, but because it's before the brain is established for the memory part, the body does remember it.
Yeah.
We know that there is trauma that happens in the belly of little kids.
Yeah.
Even if there's, for instance, 2 parents fighting the whole time the mother is pregnant, that will create stress, that'll create trauma in that little baby coming out. Another thing, a mother, she's going through a divorce with her husband, he's been cheating on her, he's now left the family, the baby's in the womb, the baby is experiencing all of that. The baby will come out with all kinds of mixed up shit going on. We know this. Science has shown us this. So that's why I will never judge any human being with an addiction who's on the streets, homeless, in the gutter, and have been that way, because I do not know what possibly could have happened to them between 0 and 3 and 4 years of age.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Is there anything that we can do as parents so you identify trauma, or the child, we already know, has suffered some traumas, right? What's the best strategies that you can use with young kids, your children, so that it doesn't evolve into addiction down the road?
Well, we can never, first of all, we can never stop what's going to happen. Um, you're, well, the earlier you can, the best thing a parent can do is again, you got to attach to your child in the first 3 and 4 with healthy attachment. That means being there, allowing your child to be seen, to be heard, and allow them to feel their emotions and hold space for them. What we have been taught is we shut them up. Oh, they're crying, get rid of them. Like, that's not attachment. You know, we know now that these, you know, the whole timeouts, putting a
Yeah.
kid in the corner, that creates trauma. We, you know, how many people I talk to, they say, well, I was never abused. I was never physically abused. And then they tell me that, they were spanked. That's physical abuse. To a 3 and 4-year-old who is being spanked, what do you think they're going to go on for them? That's trauma.
Do you want to hear something interesting? When I was in kindergarten, I'll never forget this. This is back in the old school days. They had a box with 4 walls. And I remember I threw a Hot Wheel. I was in kindergarten. I threw a Hot Wheel across the floor, and went all the way across the floor. Teacher picked me up, set me inside that box, and all I could see was the ceiling.
Are you serious?
So that's how they.
How
That's
long? How long were you in that box?
I can't even remember.
Okay.
I look back at that and laugh because I still remember them picking me
Right.
up and
And you
putting
know
me
why
in
you
that
remember
box
that? You know why you remember that?
because it was traumatic.
Right. So look, are you open right now?
What's that?
Are you open right now? Could I ask you a question?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So let's just use that experience, okay? So there you are. You'd be what? How old? 4 or 5? How old were you?
Like 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a little act out, and now this teacher takes you and puts you in a box. Was there a cover on the box?
No,
But you couldn't get out.
I could still see the ceiling.
You can still see the ceiling. Okay,
So
so
they
let me
didn't.
ask you something on a very serious note. Let's just be real. Imagine this little you in that box. Actually, I'm going to use a different person. Sometimes it's better when you help somebody to heal trauma, you use a different person. Do you know another 4 or 5 or 6-year-old boy? Do you know one?
Well, I have a son that's 11. I can remember
Okay,
when he was that age.
okay. What's his name?
Valen.
Valen. There's Valen. Okay. Imagine Valen was at that little preschool. He's 5. He had a little acting out, and this teacher took him and put him in a box. What do you think little Valen's going to experience emotionally in the body?
Probably sadness and blame
Yes,
himself, and
sadness. Very good.
he's going to
What
blame
else?
himself. He's going to
Right,
think that he's bad.
right.
Um,
Okay. So let's just start there with the sadness. Would you also say that he'd probably be very scared
yeah.
in the box? Right. So that's fear.
Yeah.
Would you also possibly say he could possibly be confused why he's in a box?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Is it possible he could maybe even have some anger? Maybe, possibly, possibly.
Sure.
Okay. And would there be some shame there? You just talked about the shame. He would think
Yes.
he's what? He did a bad thing?
Yes.
Something wrong with him?
Yeah. For
Okay.
sure.
Let me ask you something. If you knew that that happened to Valen, would you hope that somebody after this event would talk to Valen?
Hmm.
You would hope that, wouldn't you?
Yes.
And that person that you'd want to talk to him, you'd hope it would be his mom and maybe you.
Hmm. Yes.
Let me ask you something. If this did happen and nobody talked to Valen afterwards, what do you think would happen?
He could walk away thinking that there's something wrong with him.
Right. There you go. There's your trauma. Now, I want you to now to go to yourself. There's your trauma. Okay. What are you feeling right now? Back into the body. What are you feeling right now in this moment? I've seen a change in your face, everything. Go into your body. Just trust me. What are you feeling right now?
Um, I'm feeling maybe some sadness,
You got it. And where is that sadness in your body right now? Just describe where it is.
like in my chest,
In
and
your chest?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I can feel.
I saw a change in your face, your posture, everything, and you're feeling it here. Can you be with that sadness right now? Just for a second. Okay. That's how you heal trauma. Okay. That was wrong. What happened to you, and there was no one there for you at the end of that. And that's where your voice, the mistaken identity, and the false self, there's a little bit of it right there.
Hmm.
Would have been great if your mom and dad would have been able to come to you and tell you. And then let me ask you something. Wouldn't you like to known? Wouldn't you like to, like, if that did happen to your son, what would you say to that teacher?
Well, I definitely address it with the people who run the school.
You bet you.
Yeah, to find out what was going on and why they would, implement a punishment,
Right. Because
such as that.
remember, that's a 5-year-old.
Right.
That's like bars in a jail. That's
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
we forget, we humans, we let, oh, you can see at the beginning you were laughing about the experience, right? Oh, I was
Yeah.
right. But in actuality, it did something to you, my friend.
Yeah.
And that's how subtle that things that change us. And your brain development is just still going on
Hmm.
at that same time.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's so many things, right? So I just did a little bit of compassionate inquiry on you there.
Hmm.
And good for you for going there, brother.
Yeah.
Excellent.
No, thank you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
That's the actor in you. Because you studied as acting, I understand, for a
Yeah.
while.
Yeah.
So you're, as an actor, you would have to be able to get vulnerable and go to those emotions.
Hmm. That's
Well, for a
very
lot of
true.
people, right? And so disconnection is it's we that's what trauma does. Trauma is never actually about the event. It's what it does to us eternally.
Hmm.
Never about the event. It's what it does to us eternally.
Hmm. And so a lot of your process is getting in touch with that experience and then sitting in a space with the
Yes, you
feelings that arise.
right. And I
Okay.
and then I'm holding the space. I don't even like the word holding space. I'm being here with you as a guiding presence, and you're being seen and heard. I mean, we've taught our children not to be seen and heard. I mean, especially in the generation that we both grew up with parents, right?
Yeah, for
Shut
sure.
up,
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Right.
right? Shut up. You're not to be seen and heard, right? I mean, that can't be anything more damaging to a little person. Again, people, if you're having new babies, go watch about attachment theory and getting the first 3 years right, attachment wise. You will save yourself major issues happening with your children future down the road. But this is a crazy world. I mean, trauma can happen at any time, right?
Hmm.
Um, it's just the way it is.
Yeah. And Paul, you're helping people and coaching people. You do this in person and virtually, or
I do it all on Zoom, and I
okay.
have clients all over the world. It's really amazing. I was working I worked at about 4 world-class treatment centers, and I left in 2017 because they're just not teaching what needs to be taught. They're not doing the real important work that we already know about addiction and trauma and all that stuff. And so I left and I went out on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And I was writing a book in the process, and the book got published and out there, and people love my content. I don't buy any ads. People just follow me and follow me,
Mm-hmm.
and then they watch my videos, and I always ask my clients, how do they? Well, I started following you, and then I was watching your videos, and I know a person can fake a few, but all your videos are authentic, they're real, and I made a decision to hire you. And then what happens over the years, like for instance, I had one client in Norway, and now I've had 5 clients in Norway. Like one person, oh my God, I work with Paul. Now tells another person. Like
Sure.
I had one client in Mississippi. I now got like 5 in Mississippi. You know what I mean? It's just people talk,
Yeah.
uh,
Word of
and
mouth. Fantastic.
and I think because of all the suffering that I had to go through to have my awakening, I can sit with anybody and see the real truth of who they are,
Mm-hmm.
because I was suffered so greatly and I've overcome so greatly. And so that people feel safe and they can tell me anything, and I can, uh, be there and get them to the place that they really need to be. And so because in the end, we're the blockers to our own magnificence. We're the blockers. And so we got to find out what are all the blockers that's keeping us away from experiencing our true essence, this divinity, this great love, this light. That's what we're about doing, is getting ourselves there. And it's a lot of work, but the journey is worth it. There's nothing more exciting. And all my clients just they get so excited. They go through this pain, and they go through a session with me and they're crying or whatever else. And then they'll text me a couple hours later, oh, I've never felt so good in my life.
Yeah.
Like that's just how it works,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Right? It's a
That's right.
painful process.
That's right.
The truth does set us free, and it needs to be held and compassion, 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 and people learn to have great compassion for themselves when they see what really they missed out, that they didn't see what happened to them because they had to disconnect. They had to disconnect to survive. It's a journey, and we never arrive. We never arrive. We're always healing, always healing.
Always a work in
Yeah.
progress.
I always love the famous statement by this great mystic called Suzuki. He says, there are no fully enlightened people. There is only enlightened action. Right?
I like that.
Yeah, yeah, it's very humbling. And my other favorite quote that I have to say all the time, because it's easy for any human being's ego to get puffed up. And the ego plays both sides of the streets, puffed up and also I'm not good enough. That's both ego. And so the quote that really helps me is this one, and I think you'll like this one. Wisdom says I am nothing. Love says I am everything. And in between the two, my life flows. And
You got to send that to me.
Okay, I will.
So that I'll put it on the end of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love that.
Because that is like, wisdom says I'm nothing. And you can, if you don't like the word nothing, just separate the word no thing. If you don't like that word, wisdom says I am nothing. Love says I am everything. And in between the two, my life flows. Oh my God, I need that all the time. I've been saying that quote to myself for 10 years.
Yeah.
It just helps me.
Well, I like what you said too. Like, I'm not enough as ego.
Yeah.
But how many people like they're moving through life and they're like, I'm really something. I'm really special.
Right.
That's ego too.
Right. That's right. That's ego too.
The opposite spectrum.
That's
I'm
right.
not enough.
Right.
Is
I always say that
as
the
well.
ego, I always say that the ego plays both sides of the street.
Yeah.
And there's a funny statement in the rooms of recovery that an alcoholic or an addict is a person with an inferiority complex. I mean, is an egomaniac with an inferiority complex.
Yeah.
Right. And how many of us could at any moment feel better than and less than? And you just have to recognize that that is the ego. That is the ego. And it's never satisfied. It's always wanting more. And the truth is, when we peel back the layers of that mistaken identity and we get in touch with this, with our essence, as the famous Eckhart Tolle says, our true nature is this divine essence called love. When we get in touch with that, our lives change. It's like all the lenses, we have these lenses and we've taken these colored lenses and now we're seeing what is. Eckhart Tolle's definition for surrender, I just love it. It's so simple. Surrender is the full acceptance of what is.
Yeah.
Right. And then there might be action after that. You see, what people don't understand when they hear the word surrender, that they think it's surrender and there's no action. Surrender means massive action. Here's the deal. When you surrender is the full acceptance of what is, and then you might have some massive action yet you got to take because you're recognizing what really is. And I have in my book, I have a funny statement. For me, when I'm struggling, step 1 is acceptance. Step 2 is more acceptance. And step 3 is even more acceptance. Because let me tell you, I was a stubborn man for a long time. And by the way, saying that to you, I'm a stubborn man, you see, that's my shadow side. That's part of my shadow. And our shadow has our gifts. In other words, our shadow can serve us at times. If I didn't have my stubbornness and my intensity, you see this intensity I have. Do you think I would have survived when I was on the streets? No. Do you think I would have been able to write a book that took 3 years if I didn't have some intensity and some stubbornness? So our shadow has both our good and our light and our dark in it. It's called the shadow. And In fact, in our shadow has our gifts, some of our greatest gifts.
That's right.
Me overcoming my addiction is the greatest gift to the world, to others, and to myself. And I study I read the Bible many times. The Bhagavad Gita is one of my favorite books, especially by and in the Gita, there was a quote in the Gita because English was my worst subject. And if I would have said to you many years ago, I'd write a book and love writing, I would laugh at myself. And if people knew that, they knew I was bad in English at school, math was terrible at English because all about grammar and everything. And I had ADHD and all that stuff. And so if someone said Paul wrote a book, they'd Paul, oh, what do you mean wrote a book? And in the Bhagavad Gita, and you read the book, it says, it's better to do one's own duty poorly than to do someone else's duty greatly. And I had a mentor at the time who wrote 5 books, and he said, Paul, of all the people I've ever mentored, you're the one that should be writing. And I held on to that. It's better to do one's own duty poorly than to do someone else's duty greatly. And it kept me going. And I just continued to write and write, and writing has definitely helped me a lot. And I love to write.
Now you've written just one book now, or?
Yeah, and I'm now going to be beginning writing another book, and
Okay.
I think you'll like the title, "Fail Spectacularly: How Greatness is Born."
I like that.
Talk to all the greats, all the great basketball players, all the great athletes, all the great musicians, all the great they'll tell you they failed way more than they succeeded. And did I fail? Epically. But I never gave up. I never gave up, because deep within me, I had that moment that I was worth it. And I never gave up. And I failed spectacularly. And that's how greatness is born, not giving up through it. So I'm just processing that book.
No, let me ask you a question. I don't. So for the people that I know that suffer with addiction, the people that I know that are suffering on a regular basis, how did they get to that point where they actually believe they're worth it?
There's no magical answer for that. Yeah. Everybody will come at that at a different stage of their journey of recovery. But if they continue to do the work, here's what my sponsor, my mentor, Reverend Lorraine Trout, always says to me, is that this whole idea of the spiritual awakening, it just happens. It's a happening, but like grace. Pardon me, grace. What you call that is grace. We want grace to happen. My recovery happened because of grace. But how does grace happen? Nobody can give us grace. It's a happening. But I can say this, and this is what my mentor always told me. If you're doing a lot of meditating, you're exercising, you're going to recovery meetings, you're reaching out, you're being vulnerable, you're doing the step work, or you're doing some other recovery work, and you're doing all those things on a consistent basis, your chances for grace to happen increases. How's that for an answer?
I like it. I like it.
Right? Nobody can give us that, but by doing the more things that you're doing, to deal with your issue, the better chances for the magic of grace to happen.
To feel some kind of shift over a period of time.
You betcha.
And I believe it too. Like if you do immerse yourself into, a process of healing, whatever that is. And I think group work is incredibly powerful. But going to a group once a week, twice a week, if you can do that, and being around vulnerable people and learning how to speak from a place of authenticity is so hugely beneficial.
You betcha.
Yeah.
I do have a question. I do have a little thing to give to a little question for all your listeners.
Okay.
I'd like everybody who's listening to answer this question in their privacy of themselves. What are 3 things that you need to be doing that you know you're not doing to live your best life. 3 things you need to be doing. And what are 3 things you need to stop doing to live your best life? And I want you all to really process that. Okay? Really process those answers. Go really deep with that and put it on paper in front of you. And then what I want you to do is I want you to go and do that. I want you to go and make a commitment to yourself to do those 3 things and to stop doing the other. And then I have one other question, and it's this for all of the listeners. I want you to ask yourself this question. It's really important for me not to be perceived as, and some of the answers could be stupid, failure, unlovable, too needy, not enough, ugly, loud, selfish. I mean, there's a whole bunch. So it's really important for me not to be perceived as. And that, my friends, will show you where your shame is. And shame is a big blocker to your life. Because shame is the person that we would not rather be. And so we got to make friends with that shame and see what that's all about. So there, I'll leave you with that.
Paul Noiles. Paul, thank you so much, man.
Very welcome.
This has been a terrific discussion, and thank you for being on this podcast and sharing your tips, insight, wisdom, and your journey. The book, your book is called Mistaken Identity. We can get that on Amazon.
Yeah, make sure you put a mistaken identity, a sacred journey from addiction to awakening. And it's Paul Noiles. That's Noiles. People, please follow me on Facebook. I write every 2 days. I write really heavy duty posts, important posts from the heart and important stuff. And it's Paul Noiles on Facebook. And love to have you follow, and you can all, and people, I always usually return messages to people. I'm very open to returning messages, and we're all in this together. It's a journey, my friends. We never arrive, but we can experience this great essence. We live in this duality on earth, but know that we're all coming home.
All right.
Nobody's going to get it wrong in the end. Because why? Because we're it already. You see, we just don't know it.
Yeah.
We're it already, the great essence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you, sir. This has been a pleasure, man.
All right on, brother. Good to do it.
Yep. Take care.